Hello everybody, it's Murray here and welcome back to my channel M Stuart Paintings. On today's easy acrylic painting tutorial, we're going to paint this gorgeous sunset beach. I'm going to teach you how to use colour to paint a gorgeous sunset sky and how to blend really easily to make these colours look really realistic. I'm also going to teach you how to create sunset clouds, so how to paint lovely sunset clouds and how to use highlights and shadows, how to paint an ocean wave and how to put light and deep shadows on the painting, and then how to create really easily ocean waves and detail on your work so you can create this gorgeous, easy for beginners sunset painting. So let's get into it. So a nice and easy tutorial today. You're going to need the following colours. They are titanium white, cad yellow deep hue, cad orange, rose pink, crimson, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, dioxide purple, raw umber brown and Mars black. So I've got a little A4 canvas that I've painted burnt sienna. I've used cobalt blue just to paint an outline. I've got 2/3 of the painting as the ocean and I've got 1/3 at the top as the sunset. So we're going to have a big wave and we're going to have all this lovely froth. We're going to have our sun in the middle and then we're going to have a beautiful sunset sky. So if you'd like to pause the video, you can jot down the outline and you can just do a rough version for yourself and we'll start the painting. So we're going to start with the ocean sky. We're going to create a beautiful sunset in the background. So what we're going to do, we're going to get our palette. I'm just using a really easy fold away palette. I've got all the cool colours on the right hand side and all the warm colours on the left hand side. I've got just a really nice smooth brush and I'm just going to paint a white circle just in the middle of our painting. This is going to be our central point where we want the viewer to look into the painting. With landscape paintings, we're always trying to get the viewer to feel lost and into a landscape. So all we're going to do, we're going to make this colour, which is basically Naples yellow. You don't have to buy it, so if you're a bit hard up for money, you don't have to necessarily buy it. You can just mix a little bit of cad yellow, look, cad yellow and lots of white. So about 80% white and a little bit of cad yellow. I'm just lazy and I just tend to buy things because I'm doing these tutorials and it's quicker for me. So we're just going to make this light pastel yellow and all we're going to do, we're just going to create a circle around our white sun. And this is just going to create the glow of the sunset. So again, it's just to have a focal point in the middle that the viewer can get lost in and look towards. So then we're just going to add more yellow to our mix. So we're just going to add a little bit more yellow to our mix. So a little bit of cad yellow. And all we're going to do is just get a little bit darker. And the same principle, we're just going to draw a circle just a bit bigger now. And we're just gently going to blend it into our previous Naples yellow. So really easy peasy. Take your time. Now you don't have to paint your canvas burnt sienna. I just do because I find when I'm using these pastel colours, see these like light yellows and things like that, by having a little bit of a sort of a tea colour stain on my canvas, I can see where I've missed bits and I can just thicken up the paint. So I'm just adding a little bit more yellow, just getting a little bit darker. Now add a tiny bit of orange. Now orange is very powerful when you add it to colours, so you only need a little bit. I put a bit too much in, so I'm just going to make it a little bit more yellow. So orange, very much like black, it very dominates colour. So you only need a little bit. And this creates cad yellow deep hue. So again, you don't necessarily have to buy these colours. You can, hopefully, by watching these tutorials, I'm saving you a bit of money. You can just mix them yourselves. So yellow, some white, and a little bit of orange, just a little bit. And we're just gently blending it as we're coming into the circle. So look, all I'm doing is I'm pushing down hard and I'm laying down the paint. And as I move towards the circle in the middle and the lighter sort of Naples yellow, so I'm just going to go around this cloud, all I'm going to do is just gently blend it. So look, I've got hardly any pressure. I'm just touching the canvas really lightly and I'm just going to blend. Now obviously I'm a pro and I can do it very quickly, but if you're at home and you're just beginning, just take your time, don't worry. Look, you can even get most of the paint off your brush and then start blending, and then you just get sort of a chalky residue and that just helps. So if you've got lots of paint and you want to cover up a thick area, look, you can push down really hard, but then as you come to the middle, just ease up and just put less pressure and it should nicely blend. So as I was saying, you don't have to stain your canvas burnt sienna. You can paint on a white canvas. I just prefer to do so because, as I say, look, when you're laying these sort of sunset colours, it's nice just to have a darker background so I can see if I've missed areas. So before we do the cool colours, and I'll teach you how to mix them, we're just going to make a sort of bridge colour because we can't really go from yellow to blue. We'll get green. So we're going to use pink as a kind of buffer to stop us getting a green painting. So we're going to add a little bit of this blue to pink. Now to make this lovely sky blue, all you do is you get a bit of cerulean blue, a tiny dot of cobalt blue, and lots of white. So cerulean blue, cobalt blue, and lots of white. And if you just mix it to a bit of pink, we'll create this sort of kind of like a silvery pinky colour. And this is going to act as a buffer so we don't get a green sky. Because the problem with painting, unlike real life, if you mix colours and they sort of blur together, we can get sort of colours that you don't really see in the sky. So all I've done, I've waited till my yellow is dry, and then I've dried it with a hairdryer. So if you want to speed up the process, you can just dry it with a hairdryer. That's the great thing about acrylics, they're very quick to dry. And then all I've done is I've gone round that area with this lovely bluey pink. So it makes this sort of silver colour. So there we've got this sort of buffer zone. And it won't cause us to get a green sky, because apart from the northern lights, when do you ever see a green sky? So this acts as a way of stopping that. So all we're going to do, we're just going to add a little bit more pink. Tiny bit of the blue, just a tiny look, like a dot. Just more pink than anything. A rose pink you can even make with white and just 80% white and a tiny dot of red. So if you, again, haven't got these colours at home, you can always mix them yourselves. So when you're happy, please dry your painting, and I'm going to teach you an easy way to blend the sky. So look, there's a big jump between the yellow and the pink. So by having a dry painting, what you can do is you can get like 90% of the paint off your brush and just have a tiny bit of paint on your brush. And because the canvas is dry and it's quite rough, because it's got a rough texture, then with a smooth brush, look, you can just use hardly any paint. So look, I'm just getting my brush and I'm wiping away most of the paint. Over here where I want thick paint, look, I can put quite a lot. But as the paint runs out, look, I can just gently blend it into that yellow. So take your time. You can even buy sort of like a makeup style brush, like a soft brush, like a blender brush, if you find that easier. I'm just using a round headed brush. Everyone asks me what kind of brushes I use. I don't use anything expensive because I go through so many. I just use cheapy brushes. But look, I'm just taking most of the paint off my brush, and then all I'm doing, look, I'm just gently pushing down with hardly any pressure, and I'm just trying to blend it so you don't have that horrible jumping colour. Now as we go up, we're going to get more darker and more cooler, so we're going to use more blues. So again, we've got no pink now in our mix. All it is cerulean blue, cobalt blue, and predominantly white. So by adding white to all these colours, we're getting these lovely pastel colours to make them nice and soft, because we want to create a nice soft background sky, so then when we put our beautiful paint in our lovely sunset clouds, they stand out. So we're getting darker as we go up. So these are the colours, just in case you've missed it. And the second blue is just we're adding more blue and less white. So as I say, lots and lots of white, cerulean blue, cobalt blue. You can add a dot of purple if you want to, just to make it even cooler. But cerulean blue, cobalt blue, and lots of white, and you should get this lovely sky pastel blue. And then as we move up, if you want to make it a little bit darker for the very top of your painting, which I'll show you in a minute, you can add just a dot of purple and then just a little bit more cobalt blue and a little bit more cerulean blue, and we should get the darker shade of blue. So again, look, we're just trying to blend it so we don't have any jumps. So take your time at home, don't rush. The great thing about these tutorials, because they're longer and they're the real life speed, if you are more advanced and you find you're really good, you can always fast forward me. And if you're nice and slow and you just want to take your time, you're an absolute beginner, you can do that as well. So you can always pause the video if you find I'm going too fast. Like, don't worry, you can always pause it, go at your own speed. That's the whole point of these videos, is they're for you, so use them exactly how you would like them. So look, all I've done is added a tiny bit more purple to the mix. I've still got cerulean blue, cobalt blue, dot of purple and less white. So because there's less white in the mix, it's more darker, but it's still a lovely pastel blue. And again, look, there's a big jump between the pastel blue and the darker blue. So I'm going to do the same trick that we always do. I'm just going to go back to the previous colour and I'm just going to blend it slightly. So when you're happy with the sky, you should have a lovely blended background with no jumps in colour, lovely transitions, so it looks very natural and very pastel. So we've got our darkened corners, and what that should do is get you to look towards the middle. Now I want to make the corners slightly darker, so I'm going to teach you how to make two types of grey. So the first grey is just black, lots of white, and a little bit of blue or purple to make it darker. You can add a tiny bit of orange to warm it up, and to make the light grey just above it in the bottom right, all you do is use more white, and you can just mix black, white, lots of white, and a tiny bit of orange. But to get the darker one, you just want to add a little bit blue or purple to make it cooler to your black, lots of white, just less white than the previous one. And you can add a dot of orange and you should get a nice grey. So I'm just going to mix some cobalt blue, some dark grey and some white. If you don't want to mix, you can buy sort of just a dark grey from a shop. So all it is blue, cobalt blue, a little bit of dark grey and some white. And all we're going to do, we're going to create sort of a dark border on the top of our painting. Excuse the focusing on my hairy arm with loads of big bruises from martial arts. That's always nice, isn't it? So we're going to create this lovely dark border at the very top. And all we're going to do is I'm just going to take most of the paint off my brush. Just going to have a thin speck of paint, and I'm just added a bit of water just so it's a bit thinner, the paint. I'm just going to try to blend it. Again, just want to make the corners darker. So think of like camera, when you take a photo, it kind of darkens the corners. And what that does is, again, it just gets you to focus towards the middle. Because as a landscape painter, what we want to do is we want to get people lost in our painting. So we want to have the viewer imagining that they're sitting on the beach looking out to this beautiful sunset. So we've got this nice dark corners, and as I say, it's a bit scruffy. So all I'm just going to do is go back to the previous colour, just like we did before, and I'm just going to blend it a little bit better. I just don't want a jump. It looks a bit scruffy. So with these tutorials, I do try to make them for beginners. I know for absolute beginners, this might be a bit advanced, but if you don't test yourself and you don't try to do harder things, you'll never grow. So what I try to do is I try to do these paintings that are not too hard. Pretty much anyone can do them at home. But if you're an absolute beginner, like this is your first painting, you might find it a bit difficult. But for some of you, I think you'll find it very easy. So there we go, I'm just blending it. And now we're going to start building up all the light around our sun. So we're going to get a clean brush and we're going to get some orange and yellow. We're going to add a gorgeous colour of crimson. So we're going to add a tiny bit of crimson just to make it a little bit darker. And we're just going to start painting the ocean. So the reason I do a big blue outline, and the great thing about acrylics is, look, you can just paint over them. And the blue outline is so dark that what it does is it still shines through, so I can see where the rough outline of all my waves and the top of the ocean is. So it's really, really good because the colour, just like a crayon, we can put over the top. And if you imagine, look, this is all the heat coming off that sun. So that if you think the sun is incredibly bright and warm, we're going to have all this lovely orange, this hot colour, this vibrant warm colour, bouncing on the water, sort of sparkling away. But we can still see, look, we can still see our waves. So that's a really, really good thing about using cobalt blue. We can still see where we can put back our waves. So we haven't lost all the original bits and bobs. So it just makes it so much easier to paint over the top. And then what we're going to do, we're just going to add a little bit of pink to the mix. Still got plenty of crimson in that mix, so we're kind of making a burgundy, and we're just going to add a dot of the dark grey. So dark grey, like brown, sort of sucks out the colour. So do you remember I was saying like things like black really suck out colour? So think of a black hole, it just annihilates everything. So you don't need a lot, you just literally need a dot. But what it should do is just take some of the vibrancy out so it's not too cartoony. So we're using this crimson with a little bit of grey. Still pastel, still got a little bit of white in it. And all we're going to do is just at the hint of where the ocean meets the sky, we're just going to put this darker colour. And what that should do is create like an ocean that looks like it's fading off into the distance. It's still got a dark enough colour. It's still got a hint of that cobalt blue. And what we're doing, look, if you think of the middle is like a spotlight, all the warm colours are going to be right in the middle. And as we move away from the centre, so this centre is going to be the warmest, as we move to the right and to the left of that centre, we're going to get darker. So that's why we're adding crimson. So we're going to leave the middle, that nice sort of orangey yellow, and we're just going to get darker towards the edges. So again, take your time, try to blend it. Now we can even get some of this blue that we mixed up earlier and some of the lighter grey. So we've got some blue and light grey just to create a cool sort of silver. And what we can do, look, we can start putting in some even cooler colours. So again, it's the same trick. If you think of the sun as an incredibly bright light, so think of like a fire or a lighter. The middle is going to be very, very warm, just like the sky. But as we move away to either side, we're going to use cooler colours, such as blues, purples. And then all we're going to do, look, we're going to mix these two together, so there's not a jump. And we're just going to start blending. So we've got crimson going into this sort of grey blue. And what we'll probably do, we'll probably go over the top in a minute. It's a bit scruffy. And I think the blue's just a little bit too cool. But the great thing about painting is not... The problem with the tutorials is everything in painting is you kind of go back and forth. You don't just go A, B, C. So with painting, sometimes you do make mistakes. So all I'm doing, I'm just adding some darker blue and some darker grey, just making a more darker, harsher grey. Yep, you do make mistakes and you just kind of have to feel your way out. But if you learn these general principles, so look, I'm getting even darker now as I move towards the left. So by adding blue and darker grey. So if you use these general principles, even if you make a mistake, you can always come back and just reapply the principles. So if you just think warm in the middle, so look, if we get some orange and crimson again. So let's get some orange and crimson and let's just start blending it, look. So there's not so much of a jump between the really warm and the really cool colours. So just by putting a bit more crimson into the picture, look, I can just link these two areas. So again, just like the background sky, the transitions are really, really soft. We're putting back a bit of heat into it so you don't notice the jumps in colour so much. Now, why is this so important to do all this blending? Why are we doing it so slowly? Well, the reason is when we put all the detail over the top, such as our sunset clouds and our ocean waves, when we paint those ocean waves in, those clouds in, because we've got this lovely blended background, your eyes are so good, it will look so much more realistic because the background is all so well blended. So look, there we go. So we've got this lovely sky. We're going to get some of this darker purpley blue. So as I say, it's just by adding a little bit of purple to cerulean blue, cobalt blue and white. And what we're going to do, we're going to paint in our ocean wave. We're going to paint the sort of froth. I'm going to put a little bit of dark grey into this mix to again make it darker. So if you imagine this wave, this is all the crashing sea foam that comes down with the wave. It's like the wash, and it's normally white, isn't it? Because the wave has got its back to the light source. So if you imagine the wave is not facing where the sunlight is, it's going to be in the shade. So we can make that sort of look more realistic by making it like a purpley light blue. So as I say, using cerulean blue, cobalt blue, a dot of purple to make it nice and cool, and lots of white. We can make this cool sort of blue, and what that should look like, by just adding a little bit of grey just to make it darker. So let's just make it a little bit darker, and some purple. So purple is very good at making things look in the shade. We can just make this area a bit darker. So again, look, if you think of it, all this area is far from the sunlight. So it's going to be a lot darker, a lot cooler. So all I'm going to do, I'm just going to put the speed up a little bit just while I block this area in. So I'm just going to block all this area in. You should see a faint highlight of the outline below, but don't worry if you paint over it, we're going to put it all back in. So I'm just speeding it up just because all I'm doing is just blocking this one area in. And then all I'm going to do, I'm just going to get very cool at the sides by adding cobalt blue and my dark grey together. And I'm just going to make a nice really dark shadow colour look at the sides. So there we go. I'm just going to gently blend her. So again, it's very repetitive, but just think it's the key, the foundation to doing all this. Just take your time and try to make everything look nice and smooth. And remember, the great thing about acrylics is they're so easy, they're so fast drying, and if you cock up or you make a mistake, don't worry, don't beat yourself up. The whole point of painting is to relax and lose yourself in the painting. It's very good for your mental health, very good for relaxation. So if you make a mistake, you can just dry it and paint over it. There's no hardship. So look, we've got this lovely base painting now. We've got this lovely underpainting. So we've got this gorgeous sunset sky. We've got this warm sort of ocean. And then we've got this cooler sort of bay. And then we've got our beach right at the sand. And the sand's going to be almost silhouetted because it's so far away from the light source. So again, we've got this lovely center glowing sun. We've got the darkened corners. And all around the horizon, the clouds are going to be quite bright. And the waves are going to be quite bright. But as they move further and further away like this wave, it's going to get darker because it's further away from the light. So look, if you imagine my hand like the wave, it's got its back. Look, the foam is going to be not getting hardly any sunlight. And this area as well is going to be getting sunlight like a torch, but it's going to get darker as you get further away from it. So now all I'm going to do is we're going to start painting and refining everything. So we're going to work on our sunset and our clouds now. So we've got this lovely blended background. So we're going to get some white and some of that Naples yellow. And we're just going to put the glow back and we're just going to refine everything. So sometimes with acrylic paintings, the first coat you put on, it can look quite scruffy. And that's totally normal. Don't worry. Don't beat yourself up. But all you have to do is put a second layer of paint on and you can just make everything look more professional and look better. So look, all I'm doing by putting a second lot of the same colour, I'm just making the glow around my sun with some Naples yellow just look a little bit nicer, a little less scruffy. So I'm just using some white and some Naples yellow. Now we're going to make this colour at the bottom, which is cad yellow, some cad orange. Sorry, my palette is a bit out of frame. and a tiny bit of brown and lots of white. So look, cad orange, cad yellow to create sort of an orangey colour, a dot of brown to again just suck a bit of the vibrancy out, and some white just to make it nice and pastel. And we're just going to create some warm colours, clouds at the bottom of our sunset, and we're just going to leave a gap, so just where it enters the glow we're just going to stop, and these are going to be low forming clouds that you get at the base of the horizon. So I'm just using a really thin brush just so it's nice and easy to do like thin clouds. And all we want to do is we just want to make the colours warmer as we move towards the glow. So this colour is perfect for doing out here to the left and the right. So just like what we did with the blended ocean, if you just imagine that the light source in the middle is going to be brighter. So these clouds are quite dark. So we're just using a nice fine liner brush. So again, just by having the right tools, having a really thin brush, it's really easy to do thin, small detail clouds. You can buy one of these for about £1. You don't have to spend a lot. So there we go, we're just putting in these little highlighted clouds just at the bottom here. And let's do a few on the other side. But remember, it's your painting, so the tutorial, if you find like you want to change things up and you want to do things a little slightly different, that's fine. You're very welcome to. Make it how you want it to. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. I've been a while doing a video. I haven't done a video for around a year. I've been taking some time off because I've been teaching art so much. I've literally had no time to do any new videos, but I am coming back with a vengeance. So I'm going to be doing about 2-3 videos a week very, very soon. So you're all in luck, because if you want to learn painting, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do much more advanced paintings. I've actually been learning how to do much more things, how to do more advanced oil painting, how to paint more realistically. So this was a painting that I actually did about 6 months ago, but I haven't had time to edit, and just where I've been working so much in life and bits and bobs. But I'm going to come back with a vengeance. So all I've done, I've used a warmer colour around the sun, just by adding some yellow and orange, no brown, just so it looks a bit warmer. But yeah, so if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. The great thing about subscribing is, as I say, there's over 150 videos of real-time tutorials to learn anything you want to learn. If there's anything you would like to learn, please put ideas for paintings in the comments. I'm going to start doing really advanced oil paintings for the more advanced students. I'm still going to do these easy tutorials, so I'll always do easy like beach tutorials, mountains, whatever you want to learn, trees, anything like that, fields, whatever takes your fancy, we can do. But yeah, please subscribe, because the more people subscribe, the more easier it is to watch along, and you've got a place to know when the videos are uploaded. So as I say, there's 150 tutorials on the channel. We're going to start adding about 2 or 3 a week, and we're going to start literally going for it here on YouTube. Why not? So I think I really like teaching, and I really like doing these videos and editing and having fun with it. So I'm just blending this area just to make it look nice and soft. So if you subscribe, the more people, more artists find the videos, and just by liking them, again, it just pushes the algorithm. So please do so. I think about 80% of the viewers haven't subscribed. So if you're one of those people, please give us a subscription, because then you can watch more videos. And as I say, we're hopefully going to grow. The whole point of the channel is basically free educational videos to teach you art. So I think like YouTube is such a fantastic what's it called, platform. Sorry, I'm waffling away, and I forgot to tell you what colour I just mixed. It was brown, orange and yellow. So raw umber, brown and yellow, and a little bit of white, just create this dark brown, and we're going to paint our sunset clouds. Yeah, so basically YouTube is fantastic for free learning. So if you think at the moment you can literally watch 150 videos for free. How good is that? That is fantastic. So as I say, by subscribing you can just watch and binge and binge and binge and binge and learn for free, which is absolutely fantastic. You've never had a time like it in the world. Everyone moans that the world is so terrible and bad, but really think about it. So you can go on your phone and you can literally learn anything for free, which is absolutely amazing. So I just think for someone like me who likes teaching and I really like helping people, and as I say, art is fantastic for your mental health, and especially in a world where you're constantly told things are negative and you're all going to die and there's wars and all this crap. Really just checking out and actually living in the real world and just being in things that keep you present and enjoying things like painting or whatever hobby you like to do, it just grounds you and it makes you really, really lose yourself and just relax, which I think a lot of people need to do. So yeah, that's a bit of a preach, isn't it? Right, sorry, back to painting. God, you can tell I've been away for a while. Good. Right, so all we're doing is we're using this small brush and we've got this dark brown. I think it's a little bit too dark, this colour. I think I've gone a bit gun-ho. But hey-ho, as I say, we can always fix things. You gotta have, as Bob Ross would say, the darks to highlight the light. So you gotta have the negatives to show off the positive. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna make it a little bit lighter. So we're gonna add some yellow and white to our orange, brown and yellow. Look, just to make a more lighter beige colour. And what we're gonna do, look, we're just gonna soften these colours up. I think sometimes with acrylic, you mix things on your palette and they look really nice, and then you put it on the canvas, and as they dry, they always dry darker. And I think sometimes what you've got on your palette is nothing like what you put on your actual canvas, and you realise, God, that's dark, that's way too dark. It didn't look like that when I was mixing it. So it's just where it's dried, it just makes it harsher. But the problem is, if you make the clouds too harsh, and we have the really harsh colours near the sun, what it's going to do is bring those clouds forward, and we want to push them back into the background. So what we can do, it bits like similar principle, we can have this lighter sort of more beige colour towards the middle, and we can leave the very dark brown just on the very tips and the far off clouds that are in the corners. And again, that just makes it look, if we blend these sort of colours and just leave a hint of that dark brown as it goes towards the corners, it will just look like they're darker. So there we go. So all we're doing, we're just fiddling with the colour. But as I say, it's always the same principle. Whatever painting you're doing, around the light source, you're just going to have more pastel, lighter colours, more warmer colours, softer colours. And then as you move away from the light source, you're always going to get darker and cooler, some more harsh shadows. So let's get some crimson, and let's get some cobalt blue. So crimson and cobalt blue make a nice purple. We're going to add some of our dark grey to suck out the vibrancy out of it. So cobalt blue, crimson to get a purple. Put some dark grey in, and what that will do is suck out the vibrancy so it won't look as bright. And then let's add a little bit of orange just to warm it up. So if you just remember, purple cools things down, orange warms things up. So if you're making greys, look, that's how to make this perfect dark grey. And then look, what we can do is we can make these a little bit dark, but not as harsh as that brown. And we can make some dark, lovely clouds in the far corner. Just getting these shadows. So there we go. So as I say, we're going to do a lot more advanced tutorials. We're going to do quite long ones that are like oil paintings. I've still got to do acrylics because acrylics are nice and cheap and they're very forgiving, so they're perfect for beginners. So I'm going to do a mix of tutorials. So we're going to have some advanced acrylics, some advanced oils, but then we're going to have some easy ones as well. So there we go. So we've got these dark, really harsh clouds. And as I say, what it's doing is bringing it a bit forward. So we want to make them softer and more highlighted so they don't look as harsh. So what we're going to do, we're going to get a clean brush and we're going to use bright colours, which I'm going to just mix up. So I've got some light grey, some orange and yellow. And what we're going to start doing is we're going to start putting some highlights. So all we're going to start doing is start putting some brighter, warmer colours around the centre. And we're going to soften up the edges. So if you imagine these clouds, they're going to have really harsh shadows because the light is so vibrant. But around it you get this lovely sort of glow. So by making some orange and yellow and a little bit of light grey, we create this like sort of warm beige. And then what we can do is lovely sort of orangey tan colour. We can sort of highlight our clouds and just sort of go around them, give them an outline. And what that does is it just makes them look like they're glowing in the sunlight. So again, by using a really thin brush, it's so much easier just to do fine detail. So just invest £1 or $1 and get yourself a couple of these little brushes. And it'll just make your life so much easier. Trying to do this with a big clunky brush is just really hard. So look, just outlining the shapes. So easy. So all around the sun it's going to be nice and warm, so let's just paint these ones literally orange. And what it should start doing is it looks like that the colours are getting bleached as they get towards the sun. You see how it works? And as they move further away they look more striking and more darker. So look, you can just colour over things. All the acrylics dry so quick. And if you find that they're all mushing together and they're becoming a bit all one colour, just dry your work with a hairdryer and go over the top. The more confident you get with acrylics, what you'll find is if they ever mix and you get horrible colours and like oil paint, you can always just get the hairdryer out, dry your work and then coat your colour over the top a second time. And these oranges and these bright colours will come out so much more vibrant because the painting is dry. So if you ever find that you do something and it just doesn't look that good, dry your work and just re-go over it. It's a bit repetitive, as I say, but by just going over it a second time, you won't believe how much more it gives a punch to it and gives it more vibrancy and makes it just look more bright and lovely. So there we go. So we've got some nice highlights here. Starting to build it up slowly. So I'm really liking this area. We've got this lovely glow. We've got these lovely sort of tan colour going around our clouds. So let's get some cobalt yellow. Cobalt yellow? Cadmium yellow. God, I'm out of whack today. Cadmium yellow and some cad orange. And we're just going to make a peachy colour. And we're going to add a tiny bit of the dark, excuse me, what am I doing today? The light grey, again, just to suck a bit of the vibrancy out of it, just so it's not so cartoony. And a little bit of white, just to make it pastel. And again, look, just around the sun, I'm just going to make these a little bit brighter and a little bit softer. If you think that sun is just going to be bleaching everything, it's just going to be so vibrant, it's just going to make everything look like it's just disappearing and merging into the light. So these clouds we just want to make look a bit more brighter. So by just using this brighter colour and just outlining it again, look, same trick, but we can just make it look more vibrant. Here we go. Just so they look like they're glowing. So sunset clouds, as I say, they're not hard. They're just, it's like building a house or something. You just got to have solid foundations and then just take your time and just do it one step at a time. I think when you first start and you see one of these paintings, it almost seems overwhelming and you don't know where to start. But if you think, look, the clouds look so good now because the background that we did, that all that blending is making the sky trick your eyes. So as I say, by laying the foundation, do all the blending first and then start using the small brush use warm colours around the light source, darker colours as you move away. You can start building up these clouds and make your work look really realistic. As I say, it's not hard. Take your time. If you think the light's going to be hitting the bottom of these clouds, so let's put some highlights on there. There we go. Let's get some bright cad yellow, not cobalt yellow. So cad yellow. Let's get some white just to make it a little bit lighter. So we've now got a really bright yellow. And again, just around here, we're just going to make these ones look softer. So anything that's really harsh, we're just trying to go over. So there we go. Just on the tips of these ones, these bits will be getting lots of sunlight. This nice warm yellow will just make it look like it's glowing. Here we go. So look, I'm really happy with all the blending and all the colours and everything. I'm going to show you some tricks to make your work look more realistic. So you can mix up some of the sky colour. And what you can do, look, you can add sky holes to your clouds. So if there's ever a time where you've done something, you don't really like it, there's bits of areas in your painting that you just think, oh, it looks a bit scruffy. That's the great thing about acrylics. Look, you can just literally dry your work and just paint over areas. And even those really dark clouds, look, by just using a fine line, I can just put little gaps in between the clouds. And what it does is it just makes them, again, look more professional. Just makes it look more realistic. Which then these little pockets, so it looks like the sky is just shining through. And again, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So you can experiment. I like to leave all the sort of my experiments in the tutorials. Sometimes I know if you're following along at home, it might be annoying because you might think, God, I've just done that and now I'm redoing it again. But that is painting. This is what I keep trying to say to you. It's like life. You basically don't always get things right first time. You need to work on things. You need to go back to things. It's not always linear. It's not always like I just get something first time and I'm great at something from the start. You've got to just not beat yourself up if you make mistakes. You just got to stay with it. And hopefully a lot of the teachings and the channel are making you really kind of realise that it's not just about painting, it's about building your confidence and learning not to get angry. Because as I said at the time, we live in a time now where everything is instantaneous. People don't have any patience or anything. So by just learning how to sort of relax, enjoy yourself. If you make a mistake, that's fine. That's how you learn. Don't worry about it. So there we go. Just putting some with these background colours. So I've got some of that pink, got some of that lovely blue. Just putting in some gaps. So there's nothing you can't change, nothing you can't paint over. Let's say having the fine liner makes it so much easier. Trying to do this with a big clumpy brush will just be a nightmare. So there we go, look. So we've got our lovely sort of sunset clouds. It looks pretty decent. We've got this lovely warm ocean. So we've got this clouds all sort of pushed back. I think they're still a bit harsh, but let's go with it. And let's start putting in our ocean waves. So what I'm going to do, I've got some painting tape and I've put that right on the top so I get a lovely straight horizon. I'm going to use a flat brush, so it's just basically like a flat-headed screwdriver. It's just totally flat. And what that does is it makes it so much easier to do straight lines. I am one of these people, I don't know why, but I seem to struggle making painting straight lines and drawing straight lines. So I'm going to get some of this dark warm grey, which was black, crimson and purple and blue and a bit of white. and you can add a bit of orange to warm it up. So I'm going to get some of this nice dark sort of grey that I've made up. I'm going to put a bit of orange into it so it's not as harsh, it's a bit warmer. And I'm going to use these flat brush, watch. And this is what makes your life so much easier. Not only does the tape make it easy, so you can't screw up your horizon, you can go right up to the edge of the tape, look, and use this nice flat brush, and then you should get a perfect straight line. So this just alone is worth a subscription because it's such an easy, useful tip. So what we're doing, look, we're just creating a straight line, because if you're like me and you find it really hard to paint straight, you can use these tricks, this tape and this brush, to make your life so much easier. So look, all we're doing, we're going right up to the tape, and then we're going to just paint in our waves. So lucky enough for me, I've still got some of them shining through. So all I'm going to do, look, I'm just going to paint them back in. I'm going to go across with the brush. So even with a flat brush, look, I'm still a bit wonky. I don't know why. I seem to have the jitters. Maybe because it's on camera. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Just make excuses. But look, all I'm doing, I'm just doing these lines, and these are just like the caps of waves. God, that was a wonky one. Look, that was terrible. But I promise you, the brush does make a difference. Trying to do this with a normal brush is really, really hard. The flat brush, because it's got that flat edge. Oops, excuse the focus. You can tell I've been away for a while. Everything's cocking up today. God, it's a shambles. But let's go, let's go. I'm so rusty. As I say, this video, I filmed it 6 months ago. I just haven't had a chance to do it. But if you're entertained, what's a bit of autofocus going a bit crazy, eh? I just think you're learning. So there we go. Look, we've got our lovely caps of waves. They're all starting to look pretty decent now. We've got that lovely blended underpainting. It's sort of tricking your eye. So let's just do a few more at the bottom here, just where we had those outlines. And I think, well, I've got that brush. I'm just going to sort of blend the corners. Look, I'm just going to blend it just so it's a little bit darker again, to get you to focus towards the middle. I'm just using the leftover paint on my brush, and I'm using that nice flat brush just to sort of blend the edges. There we go. So that's looking really cool. So I'm happy with me far off wave. So now we're going to do the big wave. So I'm going to get some black, and I'm going to make a really like dark colour. So let's get some black and some cobalt blue to make a really dark grey. So black, cobalt blue and crimson. It should turn it a bit more purpley. So just a bit off black. Look how dark that looks. That's great. It's kind of like a Prussian blue. Prussian. So there we go. And then what we're going to do, we're going to use the flat edge again brush, and we're going to paint in this really harsh wave. Now the reason we've saved our darkest darks to now is what it should do is bring that wave close to you. It will trick your eyes, and what it will do is it will make the waves we've just done with the flat brush look far away when we're in focus, and it will make this wave look like it's coming towards you. And also you've got to remember as well, we're getting further away from the light source, so all the shadows are going to be harsher. So we can even just do a few of these waves with that harsh colour, just so it looks like it's gradually coming towards you. So there we go, just use that sharp edge of the brush, just going over some of them. Again, it just brings them a little bit closer. Don't want to go too far back because I want to keep those waves look like they're fading off into the distance. It's just the nearest one. And then I'm going to get that same colour, and I'm going to paint the bottom of the wave. So this is all where the wave rises up. This is all going to be in the shade, all a harsh shadow. So by using this sort of really dark blue, we can create that. So I'm just going to block all this area in. And what it should do is make our wave look really nice and harsh. Look like it's coming towards the viewer. Just mixing up a bit more of the dark colour. So there we go. just blend that towards the middle, just where the paint was running out. There we go. So there's our wave all blocked in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use that colour for the beach sand. So as I say, the sand is going to be very, very dark. It's almost going to be silhouetted because it's so far away from the light source. So people will go, oh, you don't really get black sand. Well, you kind of do when you take photos and things, because you get a lovely silhouette. So I'm just moving the painting up so you can see it a bit better. So I'm just going to add a bit more crimson, just so it's not as harsh. And then what I've done, I've used that really dark colour. Whoops. I've used a really dark colour. What is going on? Look. Oh my god, what a shambles today's video is. You can see why I haven't uploaded this sooner. Yeah, what I'm going to do, look, I'm just going to paint in crimson, and I'm going to leave that dark shadow to create a sort of 3D effect. So look, we've got this lovely glow in the middle, and we're going to match that here now. So we're going to make some light appear on our sort of wash. So we've got our colours that we mixed previously. So we've got some cad orange and yellow, and we made that peach colour. And now this area is all dry. What we're going to do, look, we're going to use our brush and we're going to create a shimmer on our ocean. So what I tend to do is I use a round-headed brush that's nice and soft, and I just blend it, look, into the middle. And if you think of like a flashlight, think of the water sort of sparkling. And then what we're going to do, this is all lovely and dry now. We're just going to match this on the sort of wash, this really sort of thin layer of water. So this is to create a light effect. So again, what we're going to do first, we're going to blend all the natural colour and all the light with all these warm colours. So we're going to do the same principle as what we've done in the far off ocean, and then we're going to put the detail over the top, which is super easy, which I'm going to teach you in a minute. And this will create the illusion of really, really beautiful sunset waves. So I'm even just going to put a little hint of sunlight coming down on the wash here. So I'm just using that really soft round-headed brush. If you live in the UK, you can buy a pack of these in Hobbycraft. I'm just going to get some orange and crimson to make the darker colour. You can buy a pack of these big brushes. Everyone goes, where do you get these big round brushes from? They're from Hobbycraft. They're just a pack for I think about £12. So I'm just going to put a bit of grey into our orange, crimson and yellow, just to make a tanny colour. And I'm just going to take most of the paint off with a bit of kitchen roll. And we're just going to paint again like a warm sort of orange to match this ocean here. We're just going to blend it gently into our previous colour. So we're just getting darker or orange as we come away from the centre. So again, we're doing the underpainting. So there we go. Where we've got this nice cool blue either side, when we add our crimson in the middle, it should all blend and look nice and realistic if the paint stops moving. There we go. So let's just blend it with my fingers. There we go. Right, so let's get our tape off because we don't need that now, and we should have a perfectly straight horizon. Look at that. Yay! If you've got a little white edge or anything, you can always touch it up afterwards. If you've just missed the spot where the paint was there. All I'm doing, I'm just getting some of the darker blue that we used for the corners, and I'm just making, look, the left and the right side a little bit darker. So again, it looks like the sun is coming down the middle. So even on our wave, it's the same trick. You can even, look, you can put with a small brush just some shadows at the bottom, just to look like the sea foam has a little bit of shadow. And again, it just makes it more realistic. So if I zoom in for you so you can see. So I'm just getting some of that purpley dark blue, which was cobalt blue, purple and grey, and some white. And look, all I'm doing is just at the bottom, I'm just trying to create the illusion of shadow, just to give it another added bit of depth. And so, because this is a beginner's video, we're not going to go too super realistic, but it still will look really impressive. The nice thing about all these tutorials, you can use these to make gifts for people. So obviously if you want to make something for your other half, or your family or friend. Hopefully these tutorials you can always gift people your work. It's a nice way of doing things for other people. So let's get some blue and add it to our crimson and grey. So we're just making a nice dark cool colour. So let's get some black, crimson and dark blue. There we go, so blue, crimson and black. We should get a really nice dark grey. And we're going to get our thin brush, and I'm going to show you a super easy way how to create wash on your waves. So now you've got the blended background, you can get a really thin brush and you can start creating wiggles, sort of like little wiggle shapes. And we're going to create the illusion of sea foam in the shallow water. So all I'm doing, look, I'm just creating little shapes and wiggles that sort of kind of join up. And I'm just, look, watch. I'm going to put these over the top. And what it should do, gradually, is start tricking your eye and make it look like super realistic sea foam. So what I do, I tend to do some blobs, some circular ones, some long ones. I just want them completely random, really. I don't want them all looking the same. So I do some like a teardrop, some like, look, with wiggles, dots. And what it should start doing, it looks really rubbish at first. Look, let's go around the edge, just so it looks like we've got a nice foamy edge. Doesn't really look like anything at first. Just sort of, you think, oh, Murray, he doesn't know what he's doing. What's this? This doesn't look very impressive. But once it starts to all blend together, it will start looking really realistic. So what you've done, again, you've put your nice blended background, just like you've done with your sky. And now we're putting the detail over the top. Gradually, it will start tricking your eyes. And it's a really easy way to paint realistic shallow water. So let's just do some odd shapes. I'm leaving a little ridge, can you see, just on the edge, because you get that lovely little ridge where the foam sort of bubbles up. But can you see it starting to take shape now? Just doing these weird little funky shapes. So as I say, try to make them look feminine, like make them rounded and soft. Try not to make them square or boxy. If you think water is really feminine, it's nice and curvy. So there we go. So there's no straight lines. We just want like nice sort of wiggles. And as I say, we're leaving that nice little rim just at the bottom, just so it looks like a nice foamy edge. So I get my ribbon now. Look, here we go. Here we go. Start going quick. See, that's the thing. Once you feel it out, look, you start going a bit quicker. There we go. And it should start looking really realistic and bringing the painting together. But it's such an easy way. So if you think, you put the underpainting on first and then you just mix the dark colour and we put that over the top. So let's just get some more paint and let's just finish this last bit off in the middle. There we go, just interlink the middle and we should have some ocean sunset. Fantastic wave, look at that, that is so cool. And I'm just going to get some black and then right at the bottom I'm just going to edge it. So just underneath the wave, just so it's got a nice harsh shadow. So again, just makes it look more 3D. So again, by just making this really nice and dark, I can make it just look more 3D. It looks like a shadow with that lovely carpet of waters coming up onto the beach. So there we go. And just outline it with your thin brush. Take your time. Again, try to make no sharp edges. Try to make it nice and curvy and rounded. You think water's like flowing, We don't want any harsh edges. We just want it nice, curvy, round. There we go. That looks so cool. And then I'm going to get a clean brush. I'm just going to get some really bright cad yellow. Look, pure cad yellow straight out of the tube. And I'm going to come straight down from my sunlight. And I'm just going to use this flat brush. And I'm just going to create sort of like lines coming down. Again, I'm trying to make them just sort of a bit wonky. And sort of just different shapes. Just to create that glow. And then I'm just going to get some white. And again, I'm just going to put some shimmers in the ocean water. And that's just going to look like the sunlight beckoning down, like it's walking on water. There we go, look at that. And then anything you want to touch up now, you can do. So I'm just going to get some of the sky blue that we used, which was cerulean blue, white, and what's it called? Cobalt blue. So cerulean blue, cobalt blue, and white. And just here in the middle, I'm just going to make it a little bit lighter, just so it looks like the sunlight is coming down onto that wave. So again, just a hint of that wash, looks like it's getting highlighted. Again, it gives you something in the center to look at. And I'm just blending it slightly into the darker blue, because it's only going to be in the middle where it's getting that sunlight. And I just want it really faint. I don't want too much. So I'm just blending it, look. Again, sometimes it might dry a bit flatter, because acrylics do. So you could always give it 2 coats. If yours ends up not being that vibrant, because you can remember when you're putting these whites and everything. But there we go, I think she's finished. So I've signed her in the bottom corner. So we've got this lovely glow and the central sun. We've got these light clouds, and we've got this blended sky, which you've learned how to not get green, and you've got your darkened corners. We've got these beautiful sunset clouds. You've learned how to paint sunset clouds, how to be lighter around the light source and how to get darker, and even how to put sky holes in to make them more refined. And then we've got our lovely beautiful straight line with the tape. We've used the flat brush to get lovely straight cool caps of waves. You've got this beautiful big wave and a shimmer on your ocean water, and then you've got this lovely wave beckoning with the darker shades to bring it towards you, and then this lovely foam water that you learn how to do by blending the colour underneath and then putting the really easy detail over the top with the shadow to make it look 3D, and again bring it towards you. So I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. I'm really happy to be back. I'm really glad to be back. So please like and subscribe to the video, and as I say, we'll hopefully be doing lots more videos in the near future, and it's really good to be back. And if anything you would like to learn, please put in the comments below. Take care guys, see you soon, and happy painting. Bye.